Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. I do have one quick favor before we get to the video that you came here for, and that is very simply this. You see that little red subscribe button below this video? Go ahead, smash that subscribe button. It really does help me. It really does help this channel grow and my audience grow. So go ahead and hit that red subscribe button. And now, here is the video that you came here for.
All right, so we have officially hit the college football offseason, and not all that much to talk about. Obviously, look, I know Tennessee is still looking for a new head coach. I've talked about it extensively on this channel. There's some odds and ends stuff, but it really is a pretty slow time of the year. With that said, there is something going on at Alabama right now that I think absolutely needs to be covered, and that is this. Nick Saban has lost a couple of elite assistant coaches like he always does every single year. That's part of being on top. That's part of being a team that's in contention for a national championship every year. You're always going to lose good assistants. But it's who he replaced them with, which has piqued my interest. Not sure if you saw this, but with Steve Sarkisian gone and taking Kyle Flood with him as his offensive line coach to Texas, here is who Nick Saban has replaced those two with. Bill O'Brien was named the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach to replace Steve Sarkisian last week. And on Monday, Doug Marrone, the former Jacksonville Jaguars, Buffalo Bills head coach, was named the offensive line coach to replace Kyle Flood. So in case you're not paying attention, and for those scoring at home, Nick Saban had two marquee staff openings on his coaching staff, and here is who he replaced them with. Two guys who were NFL head coaches last season. I got to tell you, among the most insane, incredible things that Nick Saban has done over the course of his time at Alabama, I think this has to be right near the top, and nobody is talking about it. So let's break it down a little bit, and let me start by saying this. I do think that Nick Saban, one of his great gifts is his ability to identify, develop, and coach his own coaches. And what do I mean by that? I think the single thing that Nick Saban doesn't get enough credit for is the fact that his coaching staff is in constant turnover, right? We give him credit for the recruiting. We give him credit for the player development. We give him credit for the actual on-the-field coaching. But what's so incredible is year in and year out, he is essentially replacing his staff hand over fist. Think about Clemson. This is no disrespect to Dabo Swinney. This is no disrespect to what they've built. I love Dabo Swinney. But Tony Elliott has been there forever as the primary play caller. Brent Venables has been there forever as the defensive coordinator. There is essentially no staff turnover at Clemson, as opposed to Alabama, where every single year somebody is leaving. Kirby Smart left in 2015 to go to Georgia. Lane Kiffin left in 2016 to go to Florida Atlantic and now is at Ole Miss. He's lost Jeremy Pruitt as the head coach of Tennessee. He has lost Mike Locksley as the head coach at Maryland. He has now lost Steve Sarkisian. And not only does he lose these guys as coordinators to become head coaches every single year, but those guys generally bring 2, 3, 4 guys from Alabama with them to start things up at the next place. Mel Tucker went to Georgia with Kirby Smart. Kyle Flood has obviously gone with Steve Sarkisian to Texas. Jeff Banks has gone with Steve Sarkisian to Texas. And so when you look at Nick Saban, that may be, I think, his single most underrated strength is figuring out, okay, who am I probably going to lose this offseason, likely as a coordinator? And how do I replace them with the best possible candidate? And I think what Saban has done in this category is incredible. And specifically, I know we joke a lot about the Nick Saban coaching rehabilitation process, but I think it's an incredibly, I don't know if productive is the right word, but just this incredibly productive, successful thing that he has done that everybody kind of mocks, but it's really kind of incredible. Essentially what Nick Saban says is, hey, look, it didn't work out with you at the last place, whether it's Lane Kiffin because of off the field and on the field, whether it's because of Steve Sarkisian, whether it's guys that have just gotten fired like Bill O'Brien, Doug Marrone, whatever. But what he basically says is, look, come here. I'm not going to let you do media. I want you to focus 100% on football. I want you to focus 100% on making my players better and recruiting. Focus on coaching. And you get out of here, I will get you another head coaching job because that's what I've done for Steve Sarkisian, Lane Kiffin, Mike Locksley, on and on and on and on and on. And so it is one of the most impressive things. And I think this might be the most impressive offseason of it. Where, as I said a minute ago, he got two guys who were NFL head coaches last year to come to Alabama and be coaches for 2021. And I know a lot of people are going to say, well, they were failed NFL head coaches. Yeah, and they were still NFL head coaches. There were only 32 of them last year, and 2 of them are now position coaches working under Nick Saban. And I would also say that when you actually look at their resumes, when you actually break down what they've done in terms of X's and O's on the field in football, they've actually been pretty good. Now, have they had blunders in other places? Have they not been great maybe with the media? Has Bill O'Brien not been great as a GM, front office, player, personnel decision maker? Yeah, I would say that's factually correct. I would say I would not have traded DeAndre Hopkins if I was him. But guess what? You can't trade people in college football. And even if you could, Nick Saban has final say on everybody that comes in his program. So it's really not a factor. So all you're doing is getting 2 extremely smart, experienced football minds that are now coming into the program. Starting with Bill O'Brien, I think it goes back to what I just said a minute ago. Everyone's so focused, he just got fired. Yeah, but look at his resume. He was actually a really good NFL head coach that was undermined by himself as the GM and decision maker of the organization. He was a guy that in his last 5 full years as an NFL head coach won 4 division titles. And one of those seasons the one season that he didn't win it, Deshaun Watson got hurt. And that is why he did not win that division title. I would add on top of that, before Deshaun Watson got there, you know who he won the AFC, I guess it would be the AFC South with. You know who he won the AFC South with? He won it with Tom Savage as his quarterback, Brock Osweiler as his quarterback, Matt Schaub as his quarterback. Talk about doing more with less. It doesn't get much less in the NFL than Tom Savage and Brock Osweiler. Oh, by the way, when he got Deshaun Watson and had real pieces around him, they went 10-6 and 11-5 in 2018 and 2019, 21 wins, 10.5 wins a season. Not that bad. Hate to say it. Wish he hadn't traded DeAndre Hopkins. If he hadn't, he'd probably still be an NFL head coach today. But you're talking about a guy that can develop offenses, that can develop quarterbacks, that can develop winning, successful football teams. And now he is coming to Alabama where he can focus solely on the offense. And on top of that, is coming to a place where he's just going to flat out have more talent than everybody else that he plays, except for 1 or 2 or 3 nights a year, if you include the college football playoff. And so you talk about a guy that, again, I didn't even mention Penn State, but had success at Penn State and had success with the Houston Texans, running an entire football team from player personnel down to coaching, down to quarterback play, down to everything. Now he just gets to focus on building an offense and coaching quarterbacks. I think he's going to be incredible. The crazy thing about it is, though, I actually am more impressed with the Doug Marrone coaching decision, where Doug Marrone has now come in to be an offensive line coach, a position coach, not even a coordinator, not even an associate head coach. We're talking about a position coach that was an NFL head coach just a few weeks ago. Speaking of Marrone, I think when you look at his track record, it's impeccable and it's important for this time at Alabama. Remember, Alabama's losing 2 All-American caliber offensive linemen in Landon Dickerson at center, Alex Leatherwood at offensive tackle. And so now you're bringing in a guy that at one point in his career was considered one of the best offensive line coaches in college football, or in football in general, specifically when he was working under Sean Payton with the New Orleans Saints. He's a guy who played the position, positions, whatever, you get the point. I know O-line is more than one position, but he played the position. He coached the position. His teams have always been rugged and physical at the point of attack in the line of scrimmage. And now he's coming back down to the college level where, oh, by the way, he's another guy that had a ton of success as a head coach. First of all, with the Jacksonville Jaguars, let's just remember, he took the Jacksonville Jaguars to the AFC Championship game. You can talk about what's happened since. You talk about being replaced by Urban Meyer. Jacksonville Jaguars, AFC Championship game, say that out loud. Just think about that, okay? On top of that, he was actually pretty good at Syracuse as well. It's easy to forget this now, but when he was at Syracuse, how about this for a stat? Since 2005, so the last 16 years essentially, they have made 4 bowl games in the last 16 years. 4 bowl games. 2 of them were when Doug Marrone was the head coach, And one of them was the year right after Doug Marrone left, and it was basically his whole team and all his players. That's it. Other than that, one bowl game a year or two ago, and they've stunk otherwise. Syracuse's best year since Donovan McNabb left were when Doug Marrone was a head coach. And so I love these hires because, and by the way, we got all offseason to break down the X's and O's of it. And I'll add, I'm not really an X's and O's guy anyway. That's not really my strong suit. And so because of it, I would add that outside of the X's and O's stuff, there's two reasons that I love these two hires. First of all, the one thing I give Nick Saban credit for, even at his advanced age, he likes to hire smart people, let them coach and learn from them. You can criticize Lane Kiffin for a lot of things. You can talk about the butt chewings and everything that happened. But Nick Saban knew he needed Lane Kiffin. He handed the offense to Lane Kiffin, and Lane Kiffin delivered. Same with Mike Locksley, same with Steve Sarkisian. And now it's Bill O'Brien's turn. And I like the fact that Nick Saban, one of the smartest football minds in the history of the sport, is now bringing in two former NFL head coaches to help him in that locker room, in the game plan room, all that stuff. You don't think it's going to make Alabama a better football team, a smarter football team, a more prepared football team to have two guys with that kind of experience coming into your building and your organization? Because I think so. I would add on top of that, how about this? The fact that it continues this pipeline and belief that Alabama is an NFL factory. Now, look, to be clear, Alabama didn't need these guys to prove that, but it certainly doesn't hurt, right? Because I think we're now at a point, we're at kind of an interesting point in college football where Alabama isn't really recruiting against Tennessee and Florida and Auburn. They're recruiting essentially against Ohio State, maybe Georgia, and Clemson. And they're recruiting the best of the best from across the country. They've crushed it in Texas the last few years. They've crushed it in California, Najee Harris, other guys like that. And the best players in the country no longer, it's not about staying close to home. It's about going, where can I get to the NFL the fastest and have an NFL-type program to work in? Essentially, I want to be coached like I'm an NFL player. I want to train like I'm an NFL player. I want to eat like I'm an NFL player. Alabama, Clemson, and Ohio State, there's no doubt that those three programs do that better than anybody else. Well, what way to take it to the next level and to tell the next group of signees, oh, by the way, you want an NFL system? We just signed two former NFL head coaches to our coaching staff. Not former assistants, not guys that were in the league and got a cup of coffee 10 years ago. Two NFL head coaches are now assistants. Like you're an offensive lineman. Forget even dealing with Saban. You're going to be coached every day by a former NFL head coach. Quarterback, Saban, he's not even going to talk to you. He's going to put his faith in Bill O'Brien for as long as he's there. And he's going to let Bill O'Brien, a former NFL head coach, Deshaun Watson's former coach you up. So to me, this is one of the most underrated storylines that we've had in this college football offseason. Nick Saban continues to evolve and change and adapt and, frankly, outsmart the rest of college football. Everybody else is arguing over this guy, that guy. Nick Saban just went and plucked two former NFL head coaches. And the crazy thing is, you know what? They're not going to be there very long. They're going to have success next year, and they're going to get another opportunity somewhere else. But in the meantime, Alabama's going to be really well coached, and the next guy is going to be in line to take their place when they go. But I love this move, and I love what Nick Saban has done. This guy is playing chess when the rest of college football is playing.